And welcome to the Music News Power Hour here on the Music Industry City Broadcast Network. It is Wednesday, the 7th of July. And please join me in welcoming my co-host Eli Window and UK correspondent Angela Randall.
Hi, Peter, and hello, everyone. I see my friend JT in the room. Thank you for joining us today. This is Music News Power Hour, and hello to our UK correspondent, Angela.
Hello, it is sunny once again in the UK. Good to see everyone.
Right on. In today's news, Finneas O'Connell is the world's #1 songwriter on Spotify. Emerging artists are changing the superstar, and Viagogo is being investigated. AIM publishes streaming research, understanding YouTube's content ID system, and as always, our daily Spotify update. Those stories coming up, but first, let's take a look at this day in music history with Eli Window. Eli.
All right, thank you, Peter. Let's take a look at On This Day in Music History in Memory. July 7th, 2006, we lost Syd Barrett, who died from complications arising from diabetes at age 60. The singer-songwriter guitarist was one of the founding members of Pink Floyd, active as a rock musician for only about 7 years before he went into seclusion. He joined Pink Floyd in 1965, but left 3 years later after one album. Barrett released 2 solo albums before going into self-imposed seclusion lasting more than 30 years, with his mental deterioration blamed on drugs. In memory. Moving on, birthdays today. July 7th, 1928, born American singer Mary Ford, who, with half of the husband and wife musical team, Les Paul and Mary Ford, rose to fame. Born this date 1940, a little-known drummer Richard Starkey. You may have heard him play in a band called the Beatles. He is popularly known as Ringo Starr, born this date 1940. And born on this date, July 7th, 1981, Sylvester Gates, Brian Allen Hayner Jr., American guitarist, songwriter of Avenged Sevenfold. Happy birthday from this date in 1994, Ashton Irwin, drummer with 5 Seconds of Summer. Happy birthday. Moving on this day in music history, July 7th, 1989, it was announced that for the first time, compact discs were actually outselling vinyl albums. Crazy day in music history. On this date, July 7th, 1999, it was reported that to attract young people to their mobile vans, UK ice cream sellers would start to play pop hits as music instead of the traditional ice cream truck chimes. Spice Girls and Oasis hits were the first to be played. On this date, 2007, Ozzy Osbourne became the first artist to be honored on Birmingham's own Hollywood style Walk of Fame. Tongue twister there. The singer of Aston sold more than 1,000 fans on Broad Street that the brass paving star meant more to him than any Hollywood accolade. And on this date, 2015, climate scientists from 5 leading universities found that 163 of Bob Dylan's 542 songs reference the climate. That's almost a third of his catalog. That makes Dylan the musician most likely to mention the weather in his lyrics. So definitely stay tuned for our weather update in today's Music News Power Hour. And that's it for On This Day in Music History. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking with the Bob Dylan one, if you ever need a weather reference, you should just brush up on your Dylan catalog.
Well, we always need a weather reference. We are always looking at the weather here on the Music News Power Hour.
Right on. All right, so this is where we summarize the most essential news in the fast-paced music industry. I'd also like to thank everyone who is tuning in the show in our video live stream. Hey, Rachel, how you doing? To set the stage for the roundtable conversation, we begin by reading key sections of media pieces. If you'd like to provide commentary on one of today's topics, request to join the stage during the reads. We also head over to Green Room for the after-show party to chat. So, hey, what's up, everybody in Green Room? We're going to be joining you over there in a little bit for the after-show conversation. And to stay up to date on this and other programming, you can register for free at musicindustrycity.com to obtain access to exclusive content. Also, remember, follow our co-hosts and commentators as they take the stage. Now let's get to it. All right. right, and this first piece is from musicbusinessworldwide.com, and if you can access the links to all the headlines we cover in today's news and throughout the week by going to musicindustrycity.com and clicking on the show notes. So there's a nice show notes graphic right there. Just click on it. And also we're starting this. Here's another neat thing we're doing. We're testing out for our residents. That means people who are registered, signed up for free at musicindustrycity.com. You can join the Music News live chat. So if you're in the news, so you can join the newsroom and there is a live chat. So it's like a feed, it's kind of like a Twitter feed. It's kind of like a Facebook news feed. And if you want to talk and chat with each other, so you can just join the newsroom there. And you can actually also, if you want, you have the option of watching the video. So you can watch the live stream of it while you're there or just listen on Clubhouse. And with that being said, let's get back over to the news. And that's Hipgnosis Songs Fund raises another $215 million with new share pricing as investors demand exceeds target. And I think, we might have to do a Hipgnosis spot, as like a weekly spot for everything they've been doing. It's the aggressively acquisitive UK-listed corporation stated on July 6 to investors that successfully raised $250 million through a proposed new share offering on the London Stock Exchange. The sum is slightly higher than the original target in June. And why? Because the offering was oversubscribed, owing it to, quote, a significant demand from existing and new investors, according to Hipgnosis. Hipgnosis informed potential investors last month that it would be their only opportunity to participate in the company through a new share placement until at least the second quarter of 2022. These new shares are planned to be listed on the London Stock Exchange on July 9th in the morning. And Hipgnosis presently finalized its annual report and confirming that it spent $1.06 billion on 84 music catalog purchases in the 12 months ending in March 2021. They have 64,098 tracks spread across 138 libraries at the time. Yeah, they've been on a buying spree. So this is, we've been seeing a lot of catalog acquisitions over the past year. So this is, they're lighting it up. All right, we're going to move over to, let's talk about Finneas O'Connell was the world's #1 songwriter on Spotify last year, according to a report. Music Business Worldwide published its first set of charts from the music rights data platform Blocker yesterday, covering the performance of writers on major streaming services in 2020. Blocker's songwriting charts consider elements such as song popularity on multiple streaming charts, as well as the percentage of each song that each songwriter is credited with writing. On July 6th, Music Business Worldwide announced the songwriters who, according to Blocker's analytics, were the most successful on Spotify globally last year. The chart lists the top songwriters, including songwriter artists behind the most popular songs on Spotify, as well as the list of most successful songwriters on the service in 2020, but only for those who did not also appear as an artist. Surprisingly, the same person tops both lists. Finneas O'Connell, who wrote half of Billie Eilish's hits, as well as released music as an independent artist through AWOL. In addition, he's also co-wrote and co-produced tracks by Demi Lovato, Celeste Halsey, and Justin Bieber and Benny Blanco that were released in 2020. So you can see all the charts at that article in Music Business Worldwide, and you can go to musicbusinessworldwide.com, or you can also see all the articles that we are going to cover today and throughout the week at musicindustrycity.com and clicking on the show notes. So let's move over to media research. It's from Mark Mulligan, and Mark writes wonderful thought pieces. And this one, I encourage you to read the entire article, because I'm paraphrasing and summarizing the best I can here, because it's really it's something that's really in depth, and he's great with these type of articles. So talking about emerging markets may be about to change the superstar business. So we'll go back a little history. The traditional recorded music industry was primarily about selling units, which meant that the most significant markets were the wealthiest, not the most populated. Throughout the late 20th century, this resulted in a global market controlled by North America, Europe, and a few others. This is why, for a variety of political reasons, Japan surpassed China to become the largest Asian music market. Streaming, especially ad-supported in bundles, has the potential to monetize enormous audiences in low per capita GDP markets, and population size now matters, and emerging markets have the world's greatest addressable music audience. The rising market prospect has the Western music and investment sectors salivating, but there is another layer that may have been overlooked. This transition will affect how Western record companies operate, not least by undermining the entire concept of global superstars in which they trade. So it goes on, and again, it really goes in deep, but he talks here about Anglo repertoire's traditional dominance, and the traditional model has been prosperity is fueled by prosperity, but they're looking at music enterprises thrived in areas where music sales was strong, but now the music industry performed best in the United States and to a lesser extent in other major English-speaking regions, and these countries benefited from the fact that English is the most exportable language for music. But the domestic repertoire accounted for more than half of the sales in only Japan and France by the early 2000s, ex-US. The global music market was controlled by Anglo repertoire, which was expanding its reach. So now he's talking about streaming, cultural catalysts for local scenes. In the old model, the lack of exportability meant no record deal was meant no local scene. Streaming changed that. The global cultural impact on the local scenes was actually first seen at scale in Europe, with German, Dutch, and French rap scenes fast emerging that found massive domestic popularity, but that rarely exported. In the old model, the lack of exportability meant no record deal and no local scene. The steady rise of Anglo repertoire up to the early 2000s will be replaced by a rise in local and regional music. Globalism is becoming replaced by internationalism and diversity. So he goes on again. I encourage you to read this, but the final, the summary is like the outlook will thus be defined by fewer Anglo global superstars, a rise in non-Anglo superstars, the rise in regional superstars, and the rise of local scenes and domestic artists. And it's really interesting because we have seen, over the years, I mean, of course, the majors have an easier time getting into certain markets, but we've been seeing a lot going on in Africa. Western Sahara, South Africa, different. I mean, there's, 52 countries is there or something in Africa. So, it's different areas, but Western Africa has really been taking off. And you see what's also been going on with like Sony's purchase in South America, some Libra a few months back. So this globalization is something that to pay attention to, because social media and streaming and everything has really made it that you can get into different markets and really expand in different territories. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this rolls out over time.
Yeah, it's sort of like you say, the streaming is sort of changed everything to be a bit more global. It makes one think about scenes such as the Seattle scene in the '90s and Motown in the '60s, and how different they would have been had there been streaming distribution available, because they were so very Seattle and so very Detroit based, respectively. It's quite interesting to see now that those sort of regional scenes don't have as much weight as they did in previous decades.
Yeah, it's interesting, like these markets, because I mean, you also look at, and we're going to talk a little bit later. There was another article, has social media killed the superstar? So we're going to dive deeper into that in a little bit later in the program. So thanks for that, Angela. We're going to go over to Viagogo, ticket reseller. Viagogo, invested by NSW Fair Trading. Viagogo is once again in hot water, with NSW's consumer watchdog Fair Trading investigating the ticket reseller. The probe stems from a surge in customer complaints following the resumption of ticketed events. Fair Trading has already received 36 complaints about the ticket reseller in 2021. To summarize, 16 of the complaints were about ticket scalping, 11 were about events being canceled and not refunded, 5 were about misleading customers into believing they were an authorized seller, 3 were about tickets not being delivered on time, and 1 was about not providing age restrictions for a specific event. Viagogo should not be permitted to get away with scalping, according to Fair Trading Commissioner Rose Webb, given the plight of the arts industry economics. She goes on to say, quote, "It was big news in 2018 when Fair Trading made ticket scalping illegal by making it an offense for ticket resellers such as Viagogo to charge more than 10% on the original ticket price and transaction costs." Surprising, most of the complaints were over Hamilton tickets being resold for more than 110% cap. The latest probe is the latest in a long line of controversies involving the ticket reseller. Viagogo was stopped from advertising with Google indefinitely in 2019, which meant they couldn't continue to pay to remain at the top of Google's worldwide search rankings. I thought Viagogo was supposed to be one of the ethnical ones, or am I
I think
confusing
it
that?
depends. I think it depends where you are. I think Viagogo has branches all over the place. Over here, they've got a lot of things that they have to comply with from the government. So I think it's a very different situation than in the U.S. But good to see that somebody's keeping an eye on that.
Yes. All right. With that, let's check in with Eli again.
All right, let's check in with me and let's check in with all of your friends. Don't forget that you can ping your friends into the room if you think that they might have something interesting to add to the discussion. Use the plus sign icon at the bottom of the room to ping your friends into the room. You can also use the hand raise icon to join the discussion at any time. You can raise your hand to join the stage, or if you are joining us on our video stream, you can chime in the chat. Don't forget that we, Music News Power Hour, are here through the Music Industry City Broadcast Network each and every weekday at 12 Eastern. That is noon Eastern each and every weekday, where you can listen to all the music news that you care to listen to and discuss. Join your moderators each and every time they take the stage by following your moderators. These are the speakers on the stage with the green moderator icon. You can also join the club by tapping the greenhouse icon at the top of the page. And don't forget to visit our website where you can actually watch us, not just listen, but watch us on live stream. And hello to all of our live stream viewers today. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to chime in the chat. For viewers joining us on the live stream, don't forget to visit our website where you can also follow along in real time with all of the headlines that we are reading today and every day, and also register for free for more content, interesting content each and every day from Music Industry City. That is our website, musicindustrycity.com. At this time, we want to move on with our broadcast where we see AIM publishes research into alternative streaming proposal. And with more on this headline, we go to our UK correspondent, Angela Randall. Angela?
Thanks for that, Eli. Yeah, this one comes from musicweek.com. And again, you can find this in the show notes if you wanted to follow along. AIM publishes research into alternative streaming proposal. The Association of Independent Music has released the first study of an alternative streaming plan based on the entire UK market. In its testimony to the DCMS committee examination into streaming, AIM argued for a new approach. Will Page and David Saphir presented their study into its artist growth model during AIM's How to Fix Streaming debate. You can visit the webpage to listen to the recording. Over 500 industry executives and professionals from throughout the creative industries attended the open debate on the economics of streaming, which featured leading music specialists. Leading digital music services, supporters of the UK broken record movement, trade associations, and government agencies were among those there. All parties involved in the present discourse around streaming, according to AIM CEO Paul Pacifico, are, quote, aligned in our passion for music and our desire to see its potential fully realized, both in terms of its cultural impact and commercial value, end quote. With 80% of streaming revenues going up to the top 1% of artists under current pro rata streaming distribution models, AIM's artist growth model claims to address this by more evenly distributing earnings across the market and allowing a larger number of credible niche and emerging artists to make a sustainable living from streaming. Page compared the system to a tax model summarizing how wealth is distributed as follows, quote, tax the very rich to help the less rich and leave everyone else unchanged, end quote. He went on to say, quote, this is holistic research looking at the whole market, not just some. Regardless of what you think of it, it is a huge win for the inquiry. The fact that the industry is now able to discuss policy in the round, we've actually done holistic research. This is all the streams for one country, not a portion of the streams from one service. Regardless of whether you love it or hate it, that's a giant step, end quote. Horace Trubridge, General Secretary of the Musicians Union, questioned what this meant for performers and non-featured musicians. Quote, this model is just a case of rearranging deck chairs. It doesn't make more of the revenue that the labels receive available to performers, and it completely ignores non-featured, end quote. Paul Pacifico commented, Quote, I think that's a criticism that could be leveled at all of the solutions that are being tabled, in the sense that they all look at how to divide money from a fixed pot. So you are de facto moving deck chairs around. Obviously, we'll keep you posted on this. I think there was a larger discussion about this when a petition was submitted to the government about how whether the government should be regulating how streaming services pay artists, and more discussions were had where these studies were being commissioned and being requested to be carried out so that they could sort of get a real, without having to subpoena the companies to provide their streaming data, which I don't even know if they can here, but it's possible. But they will want these studies to have to giving more proof to their plans to try to get streaming to be a bit more fair to smaller artists that are not on labels and those who don't have representation. So we'll keep you posted on this, but I think any study for me that's a step in the right direction towards keeping this conversation going is one worth paying attention to. And with that, we'll send you back to Peter.
Right on. Thank you for that. I mean, yeah, I mean, there was the inquiry that was started back in December that to Parliament, and Nile Rodgers was involved. A lot of the songwriters in the Ivors Academy, and to look at streaming rates. I mean, this just keeps going and going and going, and looking at different solutions and changes.
I think like I said, I think it's a step in the right direction because at least they're talking about it and at least they're taking them seriously. So, yeah, I'll certainly keep you posted if more headlines emerge on it.
All right. Well, we're going to stay over in the UK. Supergrass. I just thought this was a fun article. Supergrass replaced Richard Ashcroft as 2021 Tramlines Festival headliner. The Tramlines Festival in Sheffield has announced that Supergrass will headline the event this month, taking place of Richard Ashcroft. Due to the event's status as a test event for part of the government's events research program, the Verve's former frontman revealed on July 5th that he would be pulling out of his headline performance. In a statement, Ashcroft said, quote, I had informed my agent months ago I wouldn't be playing concerts with restrictions. Tramlines wrote in a statement, quote, following Richard Ashcroft's decision not to join us at Tramlines 2021, we are delighted to let you know that the amazing Supergrass are your new Sunday headliners. And it's going to be on the weekend of July 23rd to the 25th. Tramlines will take place at Hillsborough Park in Sheffield with performances by Streets and Royal Blood. Fans who purchase Tramline tickets, particularly to see Ashcroft, will be able to get a refund by emailing them by noon on Thursday, July 8th. And the cancellation of events was attributed to lack of government insurance and safety guidelines on how to operate post-coronavirus. So I just thought that was fun, and maybe it was a little bittersweet.
Yeah, this is actually huge news over here. So when I saw it that was listed in our headlines today, I thought, oh my word, it's definitely gotten over to the States as well. Yeah, Richard Ashcroft has made a lot of waves because a lot of people were counting on him to play the show and are now trying to get refunds. And Tramlines is trying to do their best to recover it and not have so many people back out or want refunds. So hopefully Supergrass will make a suitable replacement for anybody that's planning to come out. But yeah, he's been quite political and quite outspoken over here about his views. And yeah, this is definitely a headline that's made the top half of the papers over here. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean this. We also covered it on the Daily Brief on which is our podcast. So if you want to get updates like 2 to 3 minutes, like your 3-minute news overviews of tours and new releases, musical chairs, and other information that we might not cover in the Music News Power Hour, you can check out our podcast. And we do the Daily Brief Monday through Friday. It rolls out about 8 in the morning. You can also go to the website, musicindustrycity.com, and listen to it, or just find it on your preferred podcast player by going to typing in Music Industry City. So yeah, it was such big news, it made both cuts. All right, we're going to change direction here. This is something that was interesting, and I know people this is sparking all sorts of comments already. I was looking at some posts and everything, and whether it's like, are you kidding me, really, or like, hey, it's about time. So this one is definitely one of those dividers, and it's PAMA calls for outdated audio terms such as master slave and male female to be replaced. The Professional Audio Manufacturers Alliance has announced that it will collaborate with its members and industry trade organizations to, quote, address outdated language and terminology issues increasingly identified as discouraging a spirit of inclusivity within the professional audio community. Some terminology, such as master slave in reference to clocking and male female in reference to connector topology, are thought to be questionable. The PAMA have sent out a poll to its members, which include companies as Audio-Technica, Blue, Sennheiser, and Shure, to get feedback on this type of problematic language. Quote, the intent is for PAMA members to recommend adopting a framework within their organizations for the implementation of unified terminology across the industry in the spirit of inclusivity and consistency, explained the board chair-elect and inclusion committee member Karen Call at Harman. The PAMA has compiled a list of preferred neutral pro audio nomenclature as a starting point. This proposes that master slave could be replaced with primary secondary and male female with plug and socket. And just a note, a successful campaign was launched earlier this year to get the popular music technology forum Gearsluts to alter its name. Gearspace is the new name for it. Anybody have any thoughts on this one? Eli, I see Eli in the feed here. She's cringing, raising her hand. What do you got for us, Eli? Tip in the hat.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that I think it's really cool that the industry is looking at this in terms of plug and socket instead of male and female. I think that's really interesting. But at the same time, I just want to say that um, for myself, as someone in the music industry, a big part of what I enjoy about the music industry is that it's not necessarily politically correct all the time. I don't necessarily have to tiptoe around on eggshells and say plug and socket instead of male and female. And I don't necessarily have to have a pink sparkle guitar if I want to compete. I think this is fascinating on a couple of different levels, just looking at it from a couple of different point of views. Yes, it's amazing that we're saying plug and socket instead of male and female, but at the same time, we've been saying male and female so long with no derogatory connotations attached, that part of me feels like, what's the harm in continuing to use our current terminology? I don't know. Does anyone else have comments? If you do, you can raise your hand or you can chime in the chat to let us know your thoughts. Don't forget, you can also ping your friends into the room if they have comments and can join the discussion as well.
And plug and socket. I mean, you can't. I don't get, because a plug is what we know as a plug is. Hey, I need to plug my hair dryer. Well, I don't need a hair dryer, but my plug into the socket in the wall. So how now we're talking about audio, which is different than electricity. So it's like, oh, here, can you give me the plug? Somebody's going to hand you the plug. I mean, it could be different. And again, did somebody? I mean, was it something that people were saying like, I just can't call it male female? I mean, there obviously, but is it that big of an issue for so many people to, like what you were saying, is that, nobody really thought of it as, male, female in the terms of men, women, and everything else. So, that's what some people are saying. Like, and I was looking at some of the chat discussions, like that's what some people are saying. And then others were just saying like, oh, this is great. We should have different names. We don't have to refer everything to male and female.
Right, and I want to say too that this adjustment of terminology and vernacular is a huge step forward towards recognizing and respecting our members of the LGBTQ community who are finding themselves and who may not fit into either male or female gender. And so I'm wondering if this may be a certain sort of acceptance of our friends and brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community who don't necessarily identify with one gender or another. And so, in that respect, I think it's a step forward. Um, in terms of recognizing each of us as humans and not necessarily in terms of fitting into column A or column B, but at the same time, just for myself as someone who has a tendency to, for example, send a text message about audio adapters. It's so much easier for me to simply say use your headphone, your eighth inch headphone adapter, female to blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of ingrained in my vernacular, but at the same time, I do respect that there are so many of us who don't fit into column A or column B. There are so many gray areas that are beautiful, and we want to respect that. And it is a little bit categorizing to call these adapters male and female.
Right
Keitha,
on.
did you have something that you
Thoughts?
wanted to share? You raise your hand.
Yeah, Eli pretty much said it. I just want to add to that language is always evolving, right? I mean, just with technology, we've all had to adopt all kinds of new words for new things, you know what I mean? And so I know it can be there's resistance to, but I feel like ultimately, even though this is the first time I've heard of this, I feel like ultimately it's a step in the right direction, especially around the master slave, right? I mean, that we got to get rid of that. I mean, language is really, an important part of our culture, so I think taking a look at all of it is a really good idea. But I won't take up too much time about this story, but thanks for sharing it.
Right on. All right, thank you for that. All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna follow this conversation. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see how things roll out. I mean, if we can come up with cool names, I just don't think plug and socket is the way to go. If we can come up with some cool names, I think it would be really easy. It'd be like, yeah, let's call it that. Like, let's not even worry about any of this. I mean, it goes back to like, in Sweden and like Finland, they have boy, girl, and then there's just a neutral pronoun. There's just a neutral word that doesn't mean boy or girl. It just means like in essence person. So, it would be really nice to see that. So, all right, understanding YouTube content ID claims disputes. As a content creator, you always incur the risk of posting copyright protected material in YouTube as a content creator, and you may be subject to ID claim if this occurs. So this is a thought piece, guest post on Hypebot. And so we're going to paraphrase it here. And there are a few crucial items to consider. And that, quote, a copyright claim is different from a copyright strike, which is what happens when your content is taken down or not blocked. Copyright strikes are dangerous to the status of your channel, but copyright claims will only result in ads being placed on your video or blocking, and they are not harmful to your statuses as a YouTube channel. It's up to copyright owners to decide whether or not others can reuse their original material, and in many cases, copyright owners allow the use of their content in YouTube videos to put ads on those videos. Otherwise, videos can be blocked or muted. And what is a dispute and what happens after? A dispute is if the user that received the claim wishes to dispute the claim. This happens if a claim occurs on their channel and they wish to ensure that whoever filed the claim doesn't claim it. After you submit your dispute, the copyright owner has 30 days to respond. During this time, the claim will be temporarily released. If they don't respond within 30 days, their claim on your video will expire and you don't need to do anything. Now, there's a lot more details in the article, so I just want to kind of give you a little bit of an overview. But you can also check out those articles on musicindustrycity.com and clicking on the show notes graphic. All right, let's go over to Facebook because, we love talking about all these changes that every social media platform out there is just taking other things from other social media platforms and incorporating into theirs. And this one is Facebook is testing a Twitter-like Threads feature on some public figures' pages. And they may be so Facebook may be getting Threads soon. It has been observed testing a new tool that allows public people to write a new post that is related to a prior one on the same subject. This feature visually connects the posts, making it easier for fans to track updates over time. And when the new post arrives in followers' news feeds, it will appear as part of a thread with other posts. When contacted for comment, Facebook told TechCrunch that it is currently testing the tool with a select number of public figures. And these threaded postings will feature a View Post Thread button, according to Facebook, which will allow you followers to simply access to all the posts in the thread. When you press the button, you'll be sent to a page where you can see all of the threaded posts in one spot. And for me, I mean, I'm not good with Twitter. I've never been good with, following the threads. I mean, I'm good with computers. I'm good with social media, but I just never been good with it. And I don't know, is this just going to be confusing, but it's also might be really good to be able to reference other articles. So I see Eli is also, and we're going to throw to Eli anyway in just a second. So Eli, did you have some thoughts on that?
I hate to be a Grinch, but I just want to say, can every social media platform please stop trying to be every other social media platform?
No. The answer is no. And speaking of social media platforms or media platforms that are doing things that other companies are doing, you know what time it is?
Big green dot hits the spot.
It is time for the big green dot to hit the spot. This is the Spotify spot, the portion of our broadcast where we look at digital streaming and music technology and how it pertains. But first, we do want to take a look at your weather update. For our streamers and listeners across the globe, we do have a weather update for you. We want to say that in this week's weather update, you've never seen the sun shining so bright, never seen things going so right. Now, over to Peter Schwing for our Spotify spot. Peter?
All right. Spotify just brought back a feature it took away in 2019. After more than 2 years, the music streaming service has reintroduced the option to swipe down to find songs and playlists and like songs on Android smartphones. Although this isn't game-changing, the inability to swipe down to search on Android phones and tablets was a huge annoyance for users, as proven by the over 3,000 likes on a forum request to bring it back. Spotify users on Android will rejoice at the news, as they've been lamenting the app's enhanced functionality on iOS devices for years. The iOS users may now swipe left and right on tracks to like, unlike, or add to the queue, in addition to the previously superior ability to browse through playlists by swiping down. And that's the quick Spotify update.
Well, let's just say that nothing takes us back like an update from 2019. Let's totally forget 2020, the dumpster fire of a year that never was. Right here on the Music News Power Hour. We want to open the floor up, and feel free to chime in the chat or raise your hand if you have any comments about our headlines today. And don't forget that you can visit our website to find out more information about today's headlines and any of the headlines that we cover on the Music News Power Hour. Angela, any final thoughts for us as we open the floor for hand raising and chiming in the chat?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of chuffed that they're bringing that feature back from 2019. I know I'm a bit of I'm a bit of a fan of the sort of mid noughties. So anything to take us back a few years. I'm still trying to catch up on a lot of the new features. So, I'm not a hater.
Well, I do have one more article that I wanted to bring up, and this. Let me just make sure I have this here. There we go. We talked about the Mark Mulligan, emerging markets, earlier in the show. Talked about the superstar and a changing superstar, and there is this Amplify. It was an Amplify piece, and the title was called "Has Social Media Killed the Superstar?" And again, this is in our show notes. You can follow along. I'm going to just summarize and paraphrase a few things here. But it was very interesting. And as we are looking at what is called this creator economy, and we look at a split in the music industry where you have the traditional industry, and the traditional industry is always evolving. Yet then there's the creator economy and industry of these musicians that are using Twitch and using TikTok and DistroKid to make sure they're, and these independent platforms, and allowing you to make sure you can get your music into the social platforms and with content and people sharing and saying, just get my music out there. You can use my music. I'm not so worried about a DMCA strike. And Riot Games putting out their own album so their streamers don't get DMCA takedown notices. Monster Cat, A lot of these companies that are saying go for it with the music and use it on different platforms. So we're looking at, these people that have become Switch streamers and become TikTok superstars. But what is a superstar? So this is what they go back to, like saying, first of all, it's like define what the superstar is. Okay. And, the article really starts off with the idea of like, saying 50% of millennials trust content creators more than celebrities. For Gen Z, YouTubers are the new celebrity. And in the age of streaming and instant gratification, traditional superstars have rapidly been replaced by business savvy content creators. But is this necessarily a bad thing is the question. So to go back, here is the overview of a superstar. The term superstar associates famous individuals with celestial bodies, as the article says, but evokes a sense of orientation, transcends a kind of union between mortals and the gods they have chosen for themselves. Like, this is like this early terms of superstar relation celebrity goes back to the 1910s and 20s, in particular Frank Patrick's reference to ice hockey players. Okay, so these are the type of areas. So they have this artist mystique. And this is where social media comes in and how the rules have changed. And these emerging artists need to entertain and engage with their audiences. Millennials and Gen Zers need to relate to the artists to support their endeavors. And in some instances, personality is becoming even more important than talent, and viral content is king. So another the point they bring up here is the decentralization of knowledge. So when it comes to entertainment, decentralization has allowed a diverse artists and content creators who might otherwise not have reached anyone in the pre-social media age to thrive and reach worldwide audiences from the comfort of their homes. They go on to say, like, another top point is power to the people. And it continues, they're no longer the sole decision maker. Superfans can make or break an artist. And they're becoming increasingly important in an artist or content creator's career trajectory. Artists and content creators have to work extra hard to cut through the noise. There's 720,000 hours. That's 720,000 hours of video are uploaded every day to YouTube alone. However, when their dedication is finally recognized by a group of super fans, they have the opportunity to build a sustainable career. Consumers are also becoming creators. The accessibility of creator tools means that more and more consumers are becoming creators themselves. In the Morning Consult survey, 54% of responders said that given the opportunity, they would become content creators. And we're looking at the global marketing manager of TikTok US, Stefan Henry, summed it up the shift perfectly. Users aren't just watching, they're creating in response. And then finally, you look at millennials and Gen Zers assisted by social media companies are rapidly redefining what a superstar is. They're transforming it into a term that's based on subjectivity, personal taste, and preferences rather than the objective one-size-fits-all definition dictated by the few. Now, there's one to think about. And Eli has raised her hand. So let's check in. Eli, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I just want to say that a superstar, a super celebrity, has always been created by a personal preference. And so this is nothing new. The only thing that we are looking at here is that social media is influencing what a superstar and what a super fan really mean to us in today's economy. And so, what I want to say is that I think, just in the interest of playing devil's advocate, that perhaps social media has not killed the superstar, the super celebrity, or the super fan, but I think that perhaps social media has redefined the superstar and the super celebrity, the social media super fan, and I think that that's worth exploring as a very real possibility, that we need to redefine what it means to be a superstar. And perhaps now what it means to be a superstar is to be on social media and a different type of superstar than we have previously been exposed to. I think that this is a very exciting time because I personally don't believe social media has killed the superstar. I believe it has reinvented it. I don't know if anyone else has an opinion.
Yeah, I just want to draw back to the sort of earlier points when it was going into what the artist mystique and that sort of thing. That in some instances, personality is becoming even more important than talent, and viral content is king. So those 2 points really resonated with me in the sense that being on the tail end of the Gen X generation myself, I've always sort of struggled with the idea that someone is famous simply for being famous. You know, the I think Paris Hilton became the first person, to just be famous for the sake of being famous, and was soon followed by the Kardashians, and then many influencers sort of beyond her and them. And in recent years, that's morphed into becoming sort of a real job as a content creator, but I think it sells content creators short because content creators do have talent. They are creating content. They're, a lot of times writing scripts, coming up with concepts, storyboarding, doing plans. A lot of times it isn't just, oh, we'll turn up on site and see what happens and film it and put it up on YouTube. Some do that, but more often than not, they have to spend hours editing. They have to create engaging scripts. They have to come up with ideas to keep their audience interested, and that's a talent in and of itself. It's that sort of middle version of the sort of earliest start of this sort of celebrity, where you value fame and virality over talent, that I always struggled with. And I still do, in a sense. I struggle with influencers and following people who are solely personalities and that someone else does all the work for them, in the sense that I genuinely used to prefer my celebrities and people who have some sort of influence for being sort of masters of their own craft. People who are actors or musicians or sports people, or someone who does something that the masses, all enjoy and have become famous on the back of their being the best at it. And I feel like that gives another level of depth to celebrity and to fame that seems somehow more earned to me, but maybe I'm just old. But this
I'm
is definitely an interesting topic.
I feel like this is worth discussing in the context of the monkeys, just to play devil's advocate. And I just want to say that personality has always played a huge part in who is successful and who is not. And this is across the board, not just in the music industry and in terms of artists and music industry professionals, but no matter what your industry is, it's very important to be genuine and be yourself and be charismatic, because no matter the industry, people hire their friends. People hire folks that they feel connected to, folks that they feel a friendship with. And so, regardless of the industry, I feel like networking is absolutely key. And in this age where we can't necessarily connect in person, our way of connecting is online. So, if we can't shake hands and be charismatic in person the way we used to, perhaps we can be charismatic online. And just, Angela, I'm so sorry to be contradictive here, contrary, but just in the interest of playing devil's advocate, I'm wondering if this charisma that we are seeing online in terms of influencers is not so different from what we might have seen from supermodels and television stars, ad campaign stars in previous generations. I'm wondering if this is not just a new generation of the charisma that we may have seen in person in previous generations. That's my devil's advocate take.
You
I
know, you
fully appreciate that, Eli. But in fairness, I don't know if I would have taken book recommendations from the actors in an ad selling me shampoo either. But it does tend to be something that influencers are sort of given carte blanche to do these days. So yeah, I mean, you may have a point. I don't know. I like to sort of sit back and see what they've done to earn their place before I start taking their recommendations for things without doing my own research. Peter, what do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. Very smart, very savvy.
there is an article headline, and it was on Billboard, I believe, and the interesting thing was, I didn't read it, but it was something to the extent of, do musicians get a bump by dating or hanging out with the Kardashian? Like, that was a headline of an article on Billboard, and I was pulling up Billboard here. I was trying to find it. I think they changed it because sometimes they change their headlines. So they have another one that the headline is called, "Here are the singers, rappers, and rockers the Kardashians have romanced." So Billboard, if anybody thinks Billboard has been about news, it hasn't been in the last, 5 years. It's been a pop culture magazine. I mean, there's news there too, but it's no longer Billboard.biz of what it was. But yeah, you have to go through the Kardashian articles to get to the news. And again, I haven't read them. I just saw the headline. So that's my thoughts on this. I see somebody else took the stage.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on this end of the conversation. I don't think that social media has killed the celebrity or the superstar. It's just changed the playing field because when it comes down to it, as far back as the actors and personalities who shilled for cleaning soap and such in the 20s, it's just fandom. And fandom is always going to be based on identification. So if an individual sees a celebrity, whether they're an actor, a musician, a comedian, an influencer, there's something intrinsically that we identify with them, either a shared personality trait or a personality trait that's aspired to. That's what we're connecting with. It doesn't really matter the playing field. It's just simply that this current generation has the power of social media as a playing field.
That's
I
an
think
excellent point, Judan. I agree.
I appreciate that because, in much the way that previous generations may have read the Sunday funnies, today's generation may scroll Instagram on a Sunday morning. And so this is influential, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for joining us, Judan, and thank you everyone for joining our discussion today.
yeah, I mean, and going about like, you know, superstars. I mean, define what a superstar. I mean, influencers, TikTokers, Twitch streamers, YouTubers. It doesn't necessarily even mean like how many people follow, or it's like you can have a cult following, you can have a just a true small following. But when people see you out, it's we see stories that streamers are getting stalked, or even in public, and like they'll be live streaming and they'll be assaulted, physically, sexually assaulted on streams. And it's like, this is like, what are they? Everybody's like saying, oh, these are, it's like that stardom. It's like that old, it's the I'm going to impress Jodie Foster thing. It's like going,
Beatlemania.
yeah. But it's that area of like, what defines a superstar? I mean, can you compare Beyonce to, oh my God, I can't even think of what, some other like Twitch streamer? Are they in the same ballpark when it comes to being a superstar? The other person's fans might.
I think
I
we've
think
seen too, Peter, to your response. Sorry, Eli, just to respond to that quickly. We've seen that other aspect of the article that I thought found really interesting was that the global marketing manager of TikTok mentioned that users aren't just watching, they're creating in response.
Hmm.
So as years gone by, as Judan was talking about people still having those same level of sort of fandom and celebrity. What we didn't have in the past that we now have access to is that the playing field is like she says more level, but it's turbocharged more level. So now at this stage, whereas the stars of the 20s were shilling soap, now instead of the consumers just responding by buying the soap, they're buying the soap and then making their own content with the soap and sort of hearkening back to where they first heard of and discovered the soap, and the exchanges going on between the influencer and the consumer that I don't think we had in previous any sort of previous media. I mean, the closest I can think of is maybe old style radio shows where consumers would write in letters or submit stories or call in terrestrial radio, and there would be some interaction. But again, it just seems like sort of enhanced content for the creators themselves. And now, because consumers have the access to those same tools, you can have a post on Instagram that a celebrity puts out. A prime example: John Mayer uses TikTok all the time to promote his new music, and then people at home sing along to or play along to his songs, and then he himself rebroadcasts or reposts those collaborations when he comes across them, and then you have this real-time exchange where both parties have made similar creations that work together despite never having met, never having coordinated it. It just was a response, and that sort of content thread carries on and sort of goes viral as just a symptom of its own existence, really.
Yeah, it's really, and going back to this, the basically the users aren't just watching; they're creating in response. It's not that they're just creating in response. I mean, let's look at reaction videos, and if anybody has seen on Netflix, Inside, the movie, it was by Bo Durham. Oh my! It's basically he shot this entire. This should be up for an Academy Award. He shot this entire documentary, basically his life unfolding during quarantine in a small studio room. He did everything himself. I mean, closing credits are 30 seconds long because it's just like four names on the screen. He does a section and he's like, does everything just like the gamers and talking to them. The people that it's not even this that the users are creating response. He does a segment on he's creating a reaction video and then creates a reaction video to the reaction video and then creates a reaction video to the reaction video in real time with the reaction video playing, and it just goes into a super infinite loop. And so it's like, okay, we see content, we're creating it, we're basically kind of just repackaging, doing something else, and then somebody else is going to have a reaction video to that. It's like, I'm going to react to so-and-so's reaction video. But here's the other thing. It's not about the users creating, it's the users are part of the show, are part of the program, which goes back to one of the most basic things. Caller number 7, you are on the air. Okay? And this is the people in the chats, in the comments, are creating part of the show. And it goes back to, I remember listening to, I think, I don't remember, I was so young, but I remember it was like Saturday night, you listen to this, or Sunday night, you listen to this radio program, and you hoped John from Center Reach would call in because you knew John was going to say something funny. You hoped that John from Center Reach would call in. And he became part of the program by just being a regular caller. And that's also what we're seeing with people in the chats. It's creating the community. It's creating part of the actual show of what everything's going on. That's the same thing with Clubhouse. The audience coming up on stage is part of the show.
I would like to share too that for myself personally, if there was when I was younger, before there was social media, and I'm dating myself just a little bit here by saying that I did not grow up with social media, but when I was younger, in an era where I did not grow up with social media, I would definitely listen to content on the radio, and sometimes I would even try to tape it onto cassette so that I could record over it myself. I feel like remixing and recreating content is nothing new. What's new in the situation here, and what kind of upsets the maybe the reigning paradigm of what we think of as a superstar or a super fan. What really upsets our algorithm is the fact that now the super fan can share, not just with their friends, not just with their classmates or colleagues, and not just with their close circle, but also with all fans of the artist, all fans of the content, and the artists themselves. And so when we discuss, has social media ruined the super fan, rather the superstar, I want to ask rather instead, has a social media created the ultimate super fan? This is worth exploring, I think.
Yeah, Eli, I just wanted to say I will be doing that this evening. I am part of a group that listens along to a radio show that a friend of mine hosts in the UK here, and we all chat during it, and we get shout outs during the show, and the host communicates with us in Discord, and we have a grand old time for 2 hours listening to music and talking behind the scenes. It's a pretty great thing that's sort of come from both the pandemic and the social media sphere. Peter, Keith has come up to make a comment. Do we have enough time?
Oh, well, actually, wow, we're at the hour mark. Holy cow, what a great wrapping up the room. All right, I am going to let me put 3 minutes on the clock. So we just went into the football match, and we have been assigned another 3 minutes of overtime. So, Keitha, what do you got?
Oh, sorry. No, no, you don't need to do that for me. But yeah, this is just a fascinating topic for someone who's just entering the scene again. And an artist, it makes me think of when cable was first introduced. It's like now you have like endless options, but is there really anything still on? You really have to search for, the content that you are looking for. Um, but it's really got my artistic juices flowing too. Is like, how can I make art that's not about me, but still connects with other people? Uh, Anyways, that's my thinking. Thanks for the 3 minutes. I hope I don't.
Right
Thank
on.
you
All
so
right.
much for your comments, and that's I think that's definitely worth mentioning is that all of us we could be creating art in our living rooms, and without sharing it with anyone, we would not experience any hurdles or difficulties. But what we strive for, what we truly care about, is sharing our art with other people, our music with other people, and our industry with other people, and that's what brings us all together in a giant global network throughout time and across the universe. And so thank you so much for your comments, Keitha, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We are the Music News Power Hour from the Music Industry City Broadcast Network. You can join us each and every weekday, Monday through Friday at 12 Eastern. That is noon Eastern each and every weekday, where we join you for all the news that you care to listen to and discuss that pertains to the music industry. Don't forget to ping your friends into the room, raise your hands, or chime in the chat to join the discussion. And if you would like to join us on our live stream and watch us in real time and see what's happening behind the scenes, you can join us on our website. And hello to all of our stream viewers today. Thanks for joining us. Join us on stream by visiting our website. Check out all of today's headlines and follow along in real time or register for free on our website. And once again, our website is musicindustrycity.com. On behalf of our UK correspondent and my co-host Peter Schwing, I want to thank you all so much for joining our discussion and our broadcast today. My name is Eli Window, and we hope that you will join us each and every weekday at 12 Eastern for all the news that you care to use. And now over to my co-host, Peter Schwing. Peter?
Right on. Thanks for that. Great room, everybody. Great conversation. Thanks for this. We're going to be changing the format a little bit to allow for these types of conversations to happen. We're going to be adding more of that thought piece towards the end of the news, so you can kick back and enjoy the news. We appreciate you coming to hang out with us every day. We see a lot of same faces over and over, so we really appreciate that. Thanks for spending your time with us. And so that's why we're going to start adding in these kind of thought pieces, making it more open for a roundtable discussion at the end. And everybody also that is tuning in. And I'm just going to close out with. Oh, there was the 3-minute mark. All right, close out with one final thought to take away. And it ties in with what I was saying earlier about the audience is, going back to the audience being the creators. John Cage, 433, which basically, people call, oh, it's the silence, it's silence. 433 was not silence. It was the performers were asked not to play their instruments. The entire piece of music for 4 minutes and 33 seconds was the music that the audience was creating, that the building was creating, that the wind was creating, that all the natural occurring sounds, somebody sneezing, somebody coughing in the audience.
The music of discomfort.
That was the piece of music that was created every single time. It was remixed and mashed up every single time that was performed. So is there actually a master to it? That's a good question. So let's leave with that. Yeah. And that's one to ponder, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're going to close out on that. Take it away. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
Come on, England.
Cheerio, everyone. We'll see you in Green Room in the after party or tomorrow at 12 Eastern for the Music News Power Hour. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.
Cheerio.